excited about this one. I'm excited about all of them, but this one's kind of special. First of all, because you spell your first name the way I wanted my name to be spelled, and mine's with a K, which I'm not really. And I was in Montreal; it should have been Marc with a C for sure. But welcome, Marc, to the Leaders Who Care series.
Bonjour, Marc, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I think this is going to be fun, but also super informative and good different perspective, I think, that people are going to enjoy. So let's start. If you can introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from originally, where you are now, your favorite color, if you want, family.
As you can tell, it must be blue from what I'm wearing. Yeah, so again, thanks for having me, Marc. And as you can tell, and you introduced it, I'm French, but I've been working in the US and living and working for over 15 years in different places. I actually now live in San Francisco Bay Area, but before that, I lived in Paris, London, a lot in New York and Seattle before San Fran. I have a career in marketing, as you know, especially in financial services, even though interesting to note that I didn't start with that. In France, I started in the cosmetic industry, which I still love, and where you learn a lot about marketing. I worked in large groups, many of them you would know. We're not going to go over the resume, but also I'm very proud of it in startups, where you really learn how to get things done quickly and on a small, not much budget. I have 4 children who range from 8 to 21, 3 beautiful girls and a boy. You were saying?
I was going to say, I want to hear about your family before we get into the business, but
Yeah, no, I got married about 10, well, a long time ago, with a woman from Cameroon, and we're divorced now. I raised my kids who are 8, 13, 17, and 21. 2 of them were born in New York. So interesting family with kids and people born in 3 continents, all living together. Quite interesting.
You have your own United Nations.
And soccer team, because they all play soccer.
All right. Well, that you became Americanized very much on now they're calling it soccer, huh?
Soccer. I think we're trying to Americanize soccer. I don't play football.
No, that's great. What were you like, since we're talking about kids, what were you like as a kid and a teenager? Were you reading and writing a lot? Were you marketing lemonade stands with your friends?
I think I did better than lemonade stand, which is again an American thing. We don't really do that over there. No, I was an extremely independent entrepreneurial kid, and when I started thinking about that, I realized that I was like probably 10 when without telling my parents, I did my own independent little trip. We're living in the east of France, 3 hours away from Paris. I took a train off my own, wanted to be to Paris for some reasons. So traveling and meeting new people, especially foreigners, has always been in my life since an early stage. I was lucky enough to be in a middle school and a high school that had an exchange program with multiple cities in the world, in England, but most prominently in the US. And the exchange with Weston, Massachusetts, developed wonderful friendships that lasted a long time after that. So that was really, going to the US was already there. And I made money very early on. I won by organizing parties and garage and stuff. We were charging a small fee, but making decent money for a 12-year-old. And most importantly, I developed pictures. I'm passionate about photography, Marc. I still love it, but I made it my little job at the time. I was taking pictures everywhere, developing that black and white in my bedroom and selling them. I made good money, bought a motorbike and stuff. I had an accident and so on. So very entrepreneurial at a young age.
Did your parents know you bought a motorbike?
Well, they had to see it. They told me, you drive too fast. I said, no, of course not. And of course, I had a big accident. But no, it's just great when you reflect on who you were a teenager and realize, yeah, this is who I am today.
Yeah, there is. I had this conversation with many others too. There is a thread that when you look back of how things continue, even though you don't necessarily know it's at the time.
Yeah.
That's why I love asking people, what were they like as a kid? Because it actually appears pretty early. And
it appears so early, and I very much side with some psychologists who say that everything is more or less set in your life, more or less at 5. So it's a bit, in a nurture versus culture, it's a big thing. But I was like this, yes. And my kids are today at their age, oldest is 21, like they were very young. So it says a lot about the value of education, and we're going to talk about it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important.
Well, you gave me a good segue there. Let's tell us a little bit about your education journey. You started with law, basically at the Faculté de Droit, which people should know about, and then business admin, economy and finance at the amazing
Yeah.
Sciences Po, which people should also know about. What intrigued you to take that path?
Yeah, I'm a marketer, but at heart, that's not what I wanted to be. When I was like probably 16, 18, I wanted to be a journalist. Like, I still love that profession. I still love the news part. I wanted to travel the world. And those guys, journalists, are storytellers, but they have a purpose too. When you do that at heart, and you take amazing pictures, write amazing stories, you listen to whistleblowers, and you break news to the world. I wanted to be a Pulitzer Prize. That sounds very scary to my parents, but I still love that part of things where you tell stories and you have a purpose, a mission in life. I still see that today in what I'm doing. And yeah, so parents said, maybe not. Why don't you get a real job? Like they always say, right? Like
Right.
I say to my daughters. And I just basically went to one of those grandes écoles, as we call that in French, which is one of those top schools in Paris. They're all public schools, so they're free. It's not like Harvard where you have an arm and leg. They are very good schools, public, kind of hard to get in. And Sciences Po means political science, so they have different branches. So I studied law and economics, and then graduated with a diploma in business and marketing. Marketing, because out of all the options that I had, want to be a public servant. Marc's not going to be doing this ever, even though I was very much into politics at that age. I was very active. I decided that the private business and marketing was creative, and I always wanted to combine creativity and business. So I did that. I had in mind to really, what I'm going to do in my life. Go back to what I was telling you about the exchange in high school. I wanted to work and live in the US. So after a few years working, I ended up doing an MBA, basically moving to New York in the 90s and doing an MBA at NYU. That was probably the best 2 years of my life for a million reasons, from the environment, from the excitement of grad studies, but also just the environment of New York. And I did wonderful things that we don't have time to talk about outside my MBA there.
Yeah, it's so interesting, especially when you're young and single and whatnot, and how New York is a great city to be in. There's other cities too, obviously, but I really like. I don't think people know how many great people came from Sciences Po, and what an amazing school it is. Can you share a little bit about it?
It's a particular yeah, it's true that in the US nobody knows that school unless you're in the field. And it's a school that is very broad and heavy in cultural, building your cultural profile in addition to your technical expertise, if you want, whatever this expertise is. So they raise and grow citizens, and the Sciences Po today is way better than it was in the past, which was very good. But all the presidents, a lot of people you would know, either French or other countries, actually went to Sciences Po and took something. There's something you learn that is very unique to this school that you probably don't find anywhere else. Again, combining strong culture, philosophy, political philosophy, and science. So it raises you to be open to values that you probably not learn, or issues that you would not learn in an MBA. Even though at NYU we had, a long time ago, a professor teaching how, public goods like water or that should not be free, which is a very topical, subject today, but he was aware of that. I would say Sciences Po is one of the best schools you can have if you want to be a kind of enlightened citizen.
Yeah, I would agree. It's amazed me how many people have come out of that and everything. So good for you. Speaking of purpose and stuff, we founded Fifth Element based on the premise that leaders in their businesses can do way better when they're doing good. And I find that you were clearly a leader in elevating brand impact, and like you talked about the value of storytelling. Can you describe not only how your education contributed to that, but how your experiences framed your ability to achieve consensus on a vision in an organization?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a broad question, which I became more and more aware of, cognizant of that issue, in my later part of the career. And it's true that in Europe, I would say overall, I know it's a generic statement, but people tend to be a bit more, have it more of a social awareness, social conscious, whereas the US is very, and again, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's true, very focused on themselves and the achievement and the delivery. So let's come to that. But one thing that I remember, and which I find fascinating, is that I was raised by the father who was an engineer. And a mother who was a music teacher. Couldn't be more different. So at home, I had my left and right brain outside, and I had to reconcile that. And, creative sensitivity and compassion on my mother's side, the technology fanatic and science addict that my father was. And today, this is where I am. And I still navigate those two in my life. And like I was navigating between those two parents to reconcile their point of view, because we were one single family, right? So there's a dichotomy here, which is about getting things done in a very logical, process-oriented manner, like my dad taught me, but also being sensitive to your environment and be compassionate and not just focus on the outcome, but how you get there. And that is for my mom. So with those, what I just explained, I think is how I go about things, right? Over time, because I'm a marketer, I learned more and more and developed a passion for brands. And I think brands beyond the logo and that are really the glue, the story, the purpose that exists and that unites people in a firm. It's, think about it. You get up in the morning. Yeah, it is to make money, but there is a reason why. And this reason why beyond the money is coming from what you're contributing to, this mission, this spirit that your company is delivering. And if it doesn't have it, then there's something is missing. If it has a strong brand and a strong purpose or mission, So I've learned that early, to tell stories and drive people, make them want to get up and work together for a purpose and for a reason. I get exciting about it. How do I do it? I don't know. I just know it works, and I've done it with lots of my teammates, especially since I started having bigger team. It's a wonderful way, obviously, to connect with clients, all that being consistent. So yes, I'm a marketer. I love brands, but it goes really beyond the logo and what you think it is. Financial services. Is there a lot of emotions there? No, it's very, kind of dry. But I'm very excited because, as you may want to learn more about this, but there's this trend in finance and in asset management to introduce more than performance and to really align what you're invested, and what your values, your personal beliefs are, because you are sitting on money and you say, hey, I want this money to be doing good, not just doing well.
Yeah.
So marketer is fascinating.
Yeah, 100%. And that kind of gives me another good segue here. The fourth industrial revolution is really about technology. It's about AR, VR, AI, big time right now, moving super fast, etc. But they say the fifth industrial revolution is about humanity, and which is partly half the reason we're called the fifth element for the fifth industrial revolution. And to your point, it's really a focus on how impact and talent really come together, where not only to attract and develop and keep talent, but to make a continual sustainable impact by attracting the best talent to keep the impact going, economic, social, and environmental. With respect to that, share your thoughts on, you've led marketing for mostly large financial sector companies, different cities. You mentioned Paris, London, San Francisco, Seattle, even New York, different cultures. What's your thoughts on leading those companies in marketing, and describe how you bring the individuals and the teams together? You got to develop trust, you got to develop alignment,
Right.
How does that happen to win the championship, basically?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that the humanity and the human side of things is is new, is being more at the forefront of things right now. I hope it's true. It's interesting that you pick Fifth Element in your as a name, because to me, I didn't know you were explaining the way you do, but to me, the fifth element is the one that we always forget when we talk about, wind, fire, water, earth. There's a fifth one, which is called the ether, and that's it's not material, but it's uniting everything, and that's what connects all of us. So again, and if you want to, as I was saying earlier, if you want to achieve results, it's not just about the money. It's not just about achieving goals. You see that less and less. I was raised in throughout my career by bosses and corporations that says, you make the corporation happy, you'll be happy, we'll give you a big bonus. And that's great. I make money at it. But it's clearly not enough today. If you talk to generations, to my kids or even other people, it's just not enough. It's not even enough to optimize the way teams work. So recognizing the importance of the human side and diversity, because humans come in, as we know, different shapes, forms, colors, everything. And you gotta care, you gotta cater to more than the type A kind of motivation where, I selfishly get my stuff done, I get my big bonus and I move on. That seems to be a model which is on the verge of disappearing more and more. This is not what kids want when they get their first job. And I see that firsthand with my own kids. But that assumes that you care, right? It's caring is the new dimension. Is like, how do you go beyond achieving the goals? And you were mentioning different cultures. This is something that Europeans, I think, have discovered and implemented a long time ago. They're more sensitive to that, whereas the extremely professional, dedicated, professional culture in the US has developed and has been different for a long time. I think it's converging now. And see that. You even see the week of 4 days. 4-day week. Well, I think the French invented that a few decades ago, right?
Yeah.
Even though it was not in law. What I'm saying is we see that, and if we don't hear it, we're going to miss a big boat. So, yeah. The only thing I would add is it's not easy. It's putting a lot of pressure on us as managers. Things are not as simple as they used to be. If you really care and you want to cater to everyone in the team in a more human way, you really got to invest yourself. So it's about you as a manager. It's very rewarding, though.
It is, and I do a lot of sports analogies, and I've had the opportunity to talk to Richard Branson a couple of times, and the word pride kept coming up, that no one says they're proud of where they work anymore. And I remember as a little kid, I heard that a lot, different eras and different ways of working, but the younger generation, and every younger generation wants to make a difference. But I think this one, because number one, it sees an urgency with respect to things like climate, but it also sees that, maybe you can get everything done in 4 days. Maybe I can work more effectively at home. Maybe there are other ways to do it, but they also realize that, they want to be part of something. They want to belong. And with the brand, they want to belong. And there's studies that have been done that what fills people's hearts and souls more than anything at all is belonging. And so sports team championship, they don't do it because of the numbers on their contract. When they win that championship, it's because the coach and the teammates and everything want to win that championship. So that's what you were kind of talking about.
No, you're absolutely right. And I want to, tell all the CEOs of the world who don't really understand marketing, and barely understand what brand is. It's one of the things that CMOs need to do all the time, is explain to CEO what is a brand truly. But it's not what they think, and corporations that don't understand that their brand need to have a very strong dimension of purpose, meaning you create the belonging. They're missing on something, and they're going to become more and more irrelevant. Is it easy to sell to a board when you have quarterly results to the shareholders? No, but there are ways to connect it, right? So here we're talking about a lot of human side of things, but let's not forget that it has a major implication on employee retention, client retention, and adoption. More and more people look at what the brand is committing to, what they do and don't do. Like, seriously, if they don't take human rights seriously, it backfires. There's so many things, if you look at the past, recent past that have backfired against brand. I know the US is all politicized and polarized, and the term, but this is temporary. The long trend, secular trend, is there's a shift towards the purpose beyond just profit.
Yeah, and
so
I think
to manage it this way, it's not. It's a very, very. It's not because we want to do good. Yes, we do, but it's also because that's the way we're going to remain relevant.
yeah, it's interesting because Ryder Trucks, Ryder System, big logistics company now, have been a client of mine for years, and they long story short, they had a lot of young people from young families working there and working hard and everything. And it became a place where, to some degree, people didn't want to work because you're working all the time. And it was stressful. I had to pick up the kids and whatnot. Fast forward a little bit, the word care kept coming up. Well, how do we take care of them more so they feel more comfortable? They built a daycare center at headquarters. And that was a branding right there. But it was more than just in name branding. They really showed they cared about them.
Yeah, because they did in action. Yeah, the thing is, it's very cynical to be, if you're in corporations, it's very easy to be cynical because a lot of companies understand the words that they need to say, the boxes they need to tick. In truth, it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And I think people are realizing this. And that's true across everything, the famous DEI and everything. It's really not about what you say. That's called washing, whatever. It could be DEI washing, greenwashing. It's about doing it. I learned that from my mom. As I was saying, I have an absolute, she passed away a couple of years ago, but she taught me everything she taught me, not by telling me, Mark, do this. She just did it. And I mimicking. I learned that very early on. I see it today. We need to be, not just say, right?
And to that point, when we are retained by clients to find people, the really great people, to use for example, I want to go into diversity for a second too, they will ask, what are you doing about diversity? What are you doing about inclusion? And they're not looking for an answer like, well, it's an open door policy, or we do a potluck, lunch every month. What are you really doing? And what we found, part of the full purpose of the Leaders Who Care, is we can represent them truly as that because we have proof of what they're actually doing. And that's what candidates are asking for now, not just, what I said, like, yeah, of course we do it.
Yeah, and we always have someone volunteering to tell a wonderful story about that, but those are anecdotes. It's really, I think it's a healthy skepticism. It's good to go in there with healthy skepticism, and because change is super hard, and corporations, even though I've worked out, they have wonderful programs led by a few people, but the majority on the okay, we're going to go through that, and they do not change the heart of their culture and behavior and processes, where the same group, the same is still basically leading, and we forget to ask in total confidence to those who would benefit from DI. We forget to ask them, how do you truly feel about it? Putting them on Zoom, of course, they will give you some corporate BS, but in truth, how they feel about it is different. So it's you had a question about that? You mentioned about diversity.
Diversity, growing up in Montreal, diversity was embraced. It wasn't even said that we need it. We just wanted it. Whether it's food or sports or work or whatever, you wanted it. So, in fact, we were launched on International Women's Day at the UN headquarters. And that's the other half of the reason for Fifth Element, because it's SDG 5. Because every search we do, every impact project we do has a leaning towards diversity. You know a lot about that because you've worked with diverse people all over the world. Describe a little bit about your journey, how you navigated, how you thrived by embracing the value of diverse. You got diverse backgrounds, languages, communications, experience, ideas. All these are great. How did you navigate through all that?
I benefited from diversity selfishly because I was, aside Paris, I was always the foreigner. So I've learned what it is, even though, I was still a kind of Western foreigner, but, I realized that in every culture I've been, people see the other parts, the others, the difference, the other countries, the other cultures, the other religions, the other skin colors as, a bit unsettling, or they worry, or they're not sure how to go about it. So they kind of ignore it. Here I've been working in the US for 15 years. I don't think that the fact being French had ever interested any of the company I was working at, or the European perspective I could have. To me, it's great. I can compare, but locally, people don't use diversity in a spontaneous manner. So that's my message here is let's not be naive, right? Diversity can be a wonderful asset if you manage it, not just because it tick the box. Oh, we have wonderful statistics. In our new hires, we now have like 35% of diverse people. And yeah, those are numbers on paper. When you truly see the reality, it doesn't change anything. So my message to anyone in there, and is very humbling, is let's not kid ourselves. Diversity needs to be managed, and it starts from a place where a lot of people who are part of the majority, like I am, even in my family, I've always been the white guy. I'm also Christian, so everything ticks the box of being easy for me, and I learned and have been on a journey that I started decades ago to open up. But I realized, because it's my experience, that diversity or living with people who are not like you can come with a challenge at first. It's not as easy as you think. It's not being a tourist and you go to Thailand for 2 weeks and you come back. No, it's you are challenged in your own, and because you think that, well, everything is certain in your country. You come from, yep, I have my values, I have my certainties, and you realize, no, there's no such thing.
Yeah,
what I've learned, there's no truth. Everybody has their view on truth. So if you want to work that, yes?
No, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt. And you know what? They're all true, right? They're all true. And I learned a lot from kids because I coach kids, and I had a hockey team once that was 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds that were all different. It just worked out that way. Black, white, Greek, Jewish, this, that, whatever. And the city, they were a good hockey team. So the city noticed them and called them the UN team. And the kids were teaching the parents how to be with each other.
Yeah, no, Mark, if I may, my biggest challenge today are my kids. So as I said, their mother is African, or my kids are biracial. And so and if you ask them, said, are you white, black, or mixed? I said, no, we're black. Okay. So they define, and this is what matters, how they define themselves. They all define themselves as black, right? So in the family, I'm the white male. As you know, there's kind of things a bit easy when you're white male, easier than something else. And they hold me accountable. They challenge me. And it's not new. It's been like this for a long time. I love it because I learned to be very humble and take what they tell me without pushing back. When one of my daughters said, I felt very bad about myself because I heard remarks and it was racist, it was, unpleasant. I said, well, the typical reaction is like, nah, it's just an exception, No, don't push back. Learn, listen.
Right.
And they hold me accountable because you have a privilege, you have an advantage. What are you doing? Are you helping? Are you using it, or are you just enjoying it? So being challenged by people who are close and living it firsthand is the way your journey goes. You accept the challenge, you welcome it, you're humble, you listen, and you talk. You had a question about trust before. That's how it works, Mark.
Yeah.
You can only build trust if you genuinely put yourself out there, vulnerable, and talk really no bullshit. And you truly listen. You don't push back when people tell you things and you don't like to hear them. It's unsettling. It's not pleasant to hear sometimes, but it's true. That's how you build trust.
I interviewed a CEO about a year ago that said he's having the best time being a CEO ever because he can be emotional, he can be vulnerable, he doesn't have to pretend to know everything, and he's learning so much, basically. So you can turn that into a business advantage too, which is rocket science. And when you trust people, like my sports analogy, when the player knows the coach trusts him to put him into the biggest moment of the game, that player will do everything, and you win. You end up winning.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
It's
not something you learn in school, Mark. You don't learn that in school. Whether it's primary or business school, we need to learn those things, and not, again, not in a book, by doing, right? So if I had to, I wish I could, in my next phase of my career, I want to teach, but if I teach a class in marketing, believe me, it's not going to be the way I was taught. I
Well,
want to make it much more real.
I'll enroll in the class. How's that? Well, you know, in LA, we say we'll keep them wanting more so we can do a sequel. So we may have to do one because there's a lot more to talk about. But I do want to ask you one last question in this part. You know, client in 2021 told me, he said, you know, Marc, the year 2020 was the year that flew by slowly. And I thought it was a great comment. And the last, you know, 2020, 2021, a bit of 22 were interesting years for everybody. So many things going on.
Yeah.
So with all that said, what are you most grateful for? And also then what are you most hopeful for?
You know, I'm very grateful for all the people that have been on my journey, whether it's recent or it is when I was in kindergarten, um, because I realize now, with a bit of experience, that they made me better every time. There's so many people who have been on my journey and shifted the journey a little bit. It's not just because I decided to go there. They really were amazing at either challenging or bringing something new, and I hopefully grow. So I feel humbled by that. And I hope that, so you say what I'm hoping for is really to that first, that I also share that with them, but in whatever is left for me in my life, to really, I look forward to sharing more, and not again by preaching something, but by being and being involved, and I am really hopeful and looking forward to the next decade in my life, because it's probably going to be the best.
That's fantastic. Well said. Well, I'm grateful that you are a leader who cares, actually, and I'm hopeful that you and others, you know, that do care are gonna make an impact, are gonna make a difference in long term, not for quarterly results, but long term. So thank you for sharing all this. We really
Oh, thank you, Marc. Loved it.